Hi everyone, welcome to QENA Informative Talks with Larato and Shuri.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Back again. I'm
We're
good.
back.
How are you?
We're back again.
Yes.
Doing it once again,
Yes.
and we're so excited
Yes.
doing this episode because we really learned a lot.
Yeah.
Just bouncing ideas and just discussing, and you mentioning a lot of stories about Brendan and Damien that you guys are going to hear about today. We'll be talking about sensory tactile disorder today, and which is this talks about the sense of touch. And we're going to be talking about the importance of it and different categories and recommendations at the end so that you know what you can do at home. And these are things that are recommended by the OT. Alrighty.
Yes. I love this topic specifically because I have two boys that are complete opposites, and they very much tactile, defensive children. So I specifically love this topic. We do a lot of things at home. So I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
So first of all, what is sensory tactile dysfunction or disorder? Well, first we've got to understand what the tactile is, and that's part of our senses, right? So everything to do with touch. So it's the sensory process of tactile. And how this works is in our skin, we have receptors that send signals to the brain that helps us to perceive our environment. What's a dangerous touch? What's the okay touch? What's a friendly one? What's hot? What's cold? There's so many different.
Yep.
So we've got to understand the environment. And I know touch seems silly or simple, but if you go into depth, you'll realize how important it actually is and how it affects our environment as people.
Yeah,
yes.
that's true. That it's one of our survival senses that we use to basically survive on a daily basis. So and the importance of it, just mentioning that, it helps us to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Because obviously when you touch a stove and then it's hot and then you realize, and then the receptors will go to the skin, tell the brain, and then the brain will tell you, move your hand, and then you move your hand.
Yes.
And that helps you not obviously be in danger in anything that obviously would be touching your body anyway.
Yes.
So it's really important that we understand it in that way, so that we can value it even more. Because think about it, if you just touching a stove and you can't even feel the heat, and obviously you will burn.
Yes.
And that would be obviously detrimental, especially for kids. So this topic is really, really important, and also it deals with our social and emotional development of the kids, because obviously if they don't know how to regulate, or their receptors is not sending the correct signal of what to do, then it touches with their social cues, with their friendships and relationships that they have with kids. Because
that's big, right? That's a big thing. I mean, you need to be able to have relationships and build and read social cues, and it's just amazing how something as simple as that can affect this part of your life. So that's why it is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. Because a friend could be just pushing them or just trying to cuddle them, and then they freak out, like they scream or have meltdowns.
Yes.
And obviously that would mean that the friend will not try again touching them and cuddling them.
I have a thing with my boys where we call it the snapping turtle. So if you poke the turtle and it snaps at you because it's having an off day, you're not going to want to touch that turtle again. It's the same with social environments. If that child has a tactile sensitivity or defensiveness, then because he's snapping because of the response, the social environment around him will reject trying next time to interact with that child. And that's how they lose friends, and that affects them because they need that social interaction.
That's true. And special awareness, that's another thing.
Yes, special awareness.
They don't have it because now it affects them maneuvering around people, their friends, and even banging things.
And bumping into children, and children getting upset with the kid.
Yeah.
Like, why are you pushing me? Why are you kicking me?
Yeah.
That's typically what happens
exactly.
well.
Especially in schools where they're expected to maybe walk on a line or stand in a certain pattern, on a certain way, on a circle where they're singing and everything, and they just go and sit right on top of the other friend and not really being aware of their special space and other people, because it's not only their space, but it's also the regarding of other people's spaces also.
And some of them really don't realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't realize it at all.
So looking at that, you can already see how it's important to have these integrations for tactile senses to take place.
Yeah.
It really is important.
Yeah.
It seems small, but it actually affects a big part of a person's life.
Yeah, that's true.
And another thing before we move on to the categories that I wanted to mention was, as a mother, we all make mistakes as parents, and I can admit saying that with my firstborn especially, I had issues with dirty hands or dirty faces, and I feel I would encourage that now for parents who have little ones, because it's in the smaller years, the early years, that it's important to have those exposures and integrations take place, tactile integrations. So the dirtier their hands get, the better. The more they have sticky fingers, the better, because that's how they are going to learn and integrate those important tactile senses.
That's true. And I think because obviously with the devastating times we've been with COVID and all of the viruses that have been popping up quite recently, as parents and as teachers, we encourage kids to wash hands more.
Yes, that's
we
true.
want everything to be clean, sanitized and everything. But in that, I feel like there should be a balance, that kids should be allowed to be kids at the end of the day, and messy play is a huge impact on their development and their growth.
Absolutely.
So as parents, as teachers, it's just important to encourage them, especially with food, things like that, that that obviously they're safe, and just let them be messy. It's okay.
Yeah.
I know it's frustrating.
If they've got vegetables stuck in their forehead, leave that vegetable right there until the coach chop off the nut.
Exactly. It's okay. It's fine.
It's good.
It's good for them, because you'd rather have a child that is exposed than a child that is not exposed.
Exactly.
And that would limit their exposure into learning the environment, because exposure for them, adventure for them, it's learning. Everything that they're doing, especially in their early years, it's just them exposing themselves and exploring the environment and understanding the environment. So if we limit them from dirt, if we limit them from messy place, then
we're restricting them.
And unfortunately, that will cause them to have these disorders, because we as parents also play a huge role in that. I know there's a child that would always want to wipe their hands while they're eating. Literally every time. They will just not finish their food while eating. If there's just even one grain of rice, that grain of rice should be removed, then they'll continue eating with their spoon. And some of the things you notice that as a teacher or as a parent also, that it's some of the things that we indoctrinate without, I would say, subtle indoctrination, without realizing
it. So we're not necessarily saying it's on purpose, obviously. I mean, I made a mistake in the first year, and we'll get to that just now. So the next thing we're moving on to is the category. So you get the hypersensitive, hyposensitive, and then obviously the part where the discrimination takes place, and I'll explain that when we get to that. So the hypersensitive is the one, it's my oldest child, where they would have meltdowns if there's certain textures that are too much for them. They over-respond, in other words. So something that we would say looks like they're overreacting with a certain touch or texture. They need to be warned when someone touches them. I know as a toddler, my oldest, when I used to put him to bed and lie next to him, I wasn't able to even, my arm couldn't touch his because he would grab it and then move away from me. I wasn't able to snuggle or cuddle like you would any other normal toddler. He didn't like the sense of touch, especially unexpected touch. But he stimulated with deep pressures, like hard hugs, rough plays, wrapping in blankets and rolling him with a big gym ball. Like those things stimulate his senses in a different way. So hypersensitive also, he didn't walk barefoot on the grass because he couldn't stand the texture of grass. He would walk all along the pathway where the concrete or the ground was instead of the gravel, no gravel and no grass. And messy play, avoided it completely. Even to this day, he's 14, he still hates any messy play. We had a project a few weeks back where we built a sculpture, a house sculpture, and we had to use paper mache to finish it off. And he refused to get his hands in the paper mache, the liquid of the paper mache. I had to find ways to, I had to introduce it still, give him some input, and then, but still try and keep him happy. I couldn't force him. You can never force them
to do something that they don't know.
You have to go within their limits. And my youngest is the complete opposite, which is the hypersensitivity. I'll get to that now. So he completely had his clothes, his face, his hands, his arms, the table, everything, and even the floor and the chair was full of. He wasn't scared of touching and being drenched in paper mache liquids. He loved it. Yeah, so the hypersensitive, also fussy eaters, and also certain textures. Remember, our tongue is still part of our skin. It also has receptors that goes to the brain, the signals. So it's not because they're naughty. It really could be a texture thing. If they don't like certain textures, especially if they gag or look like they want to vomit certain textures. Touching without warning is also a big thing for them. They need to see your approach, and that's hypersensitive.
It's hypersensitive. Yeah, I know also a child that when you give them a banana, for instance, if they can hold on to the banana without the peel for the longest time, then it obviously gets a bit mushy and all of that. They will not eat that part.
Oh, yes.
They'll just not eat that part. They have to actually eat the banana without holding it, or rather holding it with the peel, without just holding it without the peel for the longest time, because it becomes mushy and then they just don't want to eat it. But if you put it in their mouth without them touching it, then they will eat it.
Yes, because it's not, because it changes texture.
Yeah.
It's a slimy texture.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then the hyposensitivity is a seeking one. So that would be your typical child that would be seeking those sensory inputs, that stimuli. So my youngest is more like this. They would be in your space. They would be looking for hugs and cuddles, and they want to touch the whole time. They also struggle with spatial awareness sometimes. So they'll be right in your face. The ones that sit on you or stand on you or bump. Damien has like that. So he would, when he was a little toddler, he would come home from preschool, and we had a roll of bubble wrap. I'll never forget it. He opened up the roll of bubble wrap on the floor. He took off all his clothes, and he was rolling in this bubble wrap. Top to bottom, he had his hands spread out and his legs spread out, and he was rolling, closing his eyes. He was just enjoying it. And with the paper mache project, like I said, he had everything full of paper mache liquid everywhere. Yeah, he likes gloop, he likes sand. It will keep him busy for a long time. Like he's in his own zone.
Some of them love water also. They'll just be there in the water. If you open the tab, leave them there for an hour, you come back, they'll still be there.
They love that.
Yeah. So they really do seek more of the touch, the sense of touch more than the hypersensitivity one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then there's also one with the discrimination issue.
Yes.
Where the discrimination is where our brains tell us, okay, this is hot, okay, this is cold, or this is sore, or this is this tickles, or this is a soft texture. So there are kids as push and pull, those kind of, they find it hard to tell what kind of texture or feeling that is. So those would also be that I can't, and that would help. I mean, they would struggle with being able to tell how heavy something is, or how hard something is. That would be the typical child that would ride a bike, fall off, have scabs and blood everywhere, and they wouldn't cry or get up, and they'll move on.
Yeah.
So that discrimination, of knowing what is sore and what is not sore, what is hot, what is cold.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add there, when you mentioned about the pushing and pulling, that instead of maybe just slightly pushing a cup, they will just exert the force, that they didn't need to exert, because their receptors are not to accurately estimate the exact force that needed for that. If they are pushing a chair, they want to push a chair with their finger. And obviously at that time they need more force of it. So the pushing and the pulling also, they do have that sensory discrimination that they need to work on. And sometimes it gets frustrating to teachers when you just ask the child that, take the chair and put it over there, and then you see them just holding the chair with their finger trying to drag it, and there's so much noise. Just pick up the chair. But it's also that sensory discrimination that we should obviously be looking in the lookout for.
We actually have it in our family as well. We make jokes about it often, because we've noticed that some have, when they touch and like open cupboards, kitchen cupboards, for instance, it won't be a normal opening. It'll be, like jerking at it and slamming it shut. And it'll be opening doors, the same thing. Handle, guys, just touch it and open it, and it'll be like, and swing it open. They don't understand. We often joke about it, but it is quite serious. But we make a joke about it. You have to. Everybody has senses. It's just a matter of, is it high? Is it low? Is it discriminated? Is it not? So we like making jokes like that in the family. It's quite funny.
Yeah. And it helps to lighten up.
Yes,
and
have, it's nice that you can notice these things, and you go, oh, that one's got
okay, all right, this one, okay.
I know what you need.
We'll help you out. But please don't go out diagnosing people.
No, please don't. No, that's not what we say.
That's not what we're saying. But some of these things, obviously at home, you can self-assess and you can see. And you can help, and that's why we have the recommendation on what you can do. Firstly, we can recommend an OT, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Because the occupational therapist could also guide you into do this at home. It really helps to see where they have the issues and what they can do to integrate those.
It helps. Yes. And also sensory bin. That way you can just put have a bin where you have different textures, different fabrics, everything, and just change it while you can. And these are things at home that you just need to do. You don't need to go and buy all the time. But just at home, wooden spoon, that, and just give it to a child to just explore the bin. And it really helps. And also sensory brush. I know you mentioned that you used it with your eldest one, that it really helped a lot with the sense of touch.
So the sensory brush is something that needs to be guided. Get the guidance from the occupational therapist. Don't try this on your own at home. They know exactly how to use the sensory therapy brush. I use it with my oldest because he didn't allow me to touch him at all as a toddler, which was quite sad because you want to cuddle and love them. So we use the sensory brush. He still has it to this day. Actually, he uses it as a self-regulating tool at times. So that helps. It really made a huge difference. I mean, now he's the biggest hugger in the house. So it's really, he hugs everyone. He knows you're not, he'll hug you. So that helped. So it's living proof that it really does help. And another thing I would say is, like I said earlier, is allow your little ones to get dirty.
Yeah.
And just more exposure to sensory integration.
Yeah.
Just let them get dirty and play with jelly and lick it and shove it everywhere and rub it everywhere. It's the best thing for them.
Yeah, it is. It is the best thing for them and for their development. And like we said, these obviously they apply more, I think, to the little ones than the older ones.
Yes.
Because the older ones, they know how to self-regulate most of the time, and it's just navigating around them using their senses. But the little ones, because they are in a phase where they are being exposed, so it applies more into them and your toddlers and your infants. So please just try to expose them as much as you can. I know my little one, when she was like 3 months, if not 4 months, I took one of her cloths, and then she was lying there, and I just roll it up and down.
Oh.
She giggled. She loved it. I would just roll it up and down, and she would just laugh and laugh and laugh. So those are the smallest things. You start from that age, putting different textures, different fabrics in their hands while they're still young. And then while they grow up, then you can start with the messy plays and all of that. And it really, really have a great impact on them, being exposed and obviously regulating, and their brain and receptors being able to send the correct signal. And how
I think the developmental years, the early years, are so much easier because that's the time when they get to know the environment. Yes. Just like their muscles need to learn how to crawl, to walk, just so our senses need to learn what's happening in the world around us. So that it is good for them to get that exposure as often as possible.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this episode. We really had fun. I had fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot. And I hope you have learned, and I hope you tune in next week once again with a new episode that is coming. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.